Do you guys hear that? That noise right there, that ticking. That sound is why you are not good at old school RuneScape. Hello, everybody. It is me, your humble host, Tasty. Good to see you all. As a lot of you know, I've recently wrapped up a 3-month journey of completing all of RuneScape's combat achievements. You can watch those videos there. I'll link them in the description real quick for you guys. Anyway, what this means for me is 2 things. Number 1, I'm not that bad at the game anymore. I'm okay. I understand the game mechanics on a fundamental level. And number 2, more importantly, I am now a lot more condescending. That's just a big word that means that I talk down to people. So consider this video a bit of a retrospective on everything that I've learned and allow me to pass my knowledge on to you guys so that maybe one day you can also become a Grandmaster or at least click Vorkath a little bit better. Back to the ticking. This right here is a game tick, otherwise known as a game cycle, and this is the fundamental engine of old school RuneScape. Every action that is registered by the server occurs on a game tick. So you eat food on a game tick, you attack an enemy on a game tick, your prayer activates on a game tick. Pretty easy, we're sensing a bit of a pattern here. There are 100 game ticks per minute, so the game essentially plays at like 100 BPM, if you want to think of it like that. That's why so many high-level players refer to RuneScape as kind of this undercover rhythm game. Now, the funny thing is that this is not something that you have to know to play the game for 1,000 hours. You can even max your RuneScape account without ever hearing the phrase game tick. But when you really want to get good, you want to do Tob, you want to do Inferno, you want to do all those sort of things, you have to know what this is. There comes a crossroad in every player's journey where they realize, you know, this is more than a point-and-click adventure game. So they either buckle up and get good, or they start skilling, using an anime profile picture, and browsing Reddit a lot. This video is for the former, so sack up everybody. Let's see what we got to go over today. There are 3 main things to discuss to up your chops in RuneScape. Now, number 1 is attack cycles. So understanding how fast your weapon is, how fast the enemy is, the pattern, the rhythm, if you will, of using your weapon and being in combat. Number 2, pathing and movement. Now, this one is absolutely huge, and understanding how your character moves is massive in pretty much every PvM scenario. And this is the one that I think is definitely the most useful for newer players, so stick around for this one if you don't know much about it. Now, number 3 is prayers and prayer flicking, and this is where it gets a little bit more advanced because this is only wickedly important in the Inferno and a few other niche situations, but the general knowledge is extremely valuable and it ties in with everything else. Red alert, wee woo, it's me, the police. Okay, listen up everybody. There is one huge thing that you have to know that applies to literally everything we are going to talk about from this point forward. And that is when you click to perform an action, being eating food or attacking an enemy, that action will not occur until the next game tick. Look at this chart. Think of this like sheet music. So each of these lines is a game tick. Now, theoretically, if you clicked on or in between 2 ticks, the action would occur on the next soonest tick. Now, that's not actually the case because of server lag and ping, which at the time of this video has been pretty brutal. So if you get unlucky, you might click near the second half of a game tick, but due to ping, it won't reach the server until technically the start of the next tick, which makes you wait an entire other tick. So that's why it feels like you got screwed sometimes, like you're very sluggish. It's because you are. Now, with this in mind, let's look at attack cycles. You often hear people throw on the phrase attack speed when they're talking about weapons. So the most common of this is a 4-tick attack speed. This is like the whip, the sangstaff, the trident, pretty much every melee weapon, right? All this means is that you attack every 4 game ticks. So a game tick is every 0.6 seconds. It's 2.4 seconds every attack. That's essentially all it is. And the interesting thing is that this is actually similar to music. So 4/4 time signature is wildly popular in pretty much every form of music. It's because it's easy for our dumb idiot brains to understand. It makes sense to us. On top of that, most monsters are 4-tick in RuneScape as well, so just something to keep in mind. Now, remember, little callback here, that whenever you perform an action, right, it takes an extra tick for that action to occur. If you attack something with a 4-tick weapon and then you happen to run around or eat or do anything that kind of cancels your auto-attacking, you need to click back on that monster the tick before you would have attacked again had you not moved or anything, right? Because if you click on the exact tick you would have attacked, guess what? It takes until the next tick. So this would turn a 4-tick weapon into essentially a 5-tick weapon, if that makes sense. Now, why is this important? It seems like something kind of small and trivial to go over because this is not something that usually happens. Usually just stand there and hit the monster. Number one is that it's essentially just lost damage, right? If you're fighting a team boss, maybe your team will kill that boss before your next swing. So guess what? You lost an entire swing in that case. In the case of a solo encounter, it will take as many ticks as you lost extra to kill the boss, right? It's essentially just lost time. But like I said, in a lot of cases, this is kind of minute. It's, not something you typically worry about. However, the reason I'm really bringing this up is because it becomes very important when we shrink down the scale to a 2-tick weapon like the toxic blowpipe. This is still pretty much the most useful weapon in the entire game. It is a giant goal for newer players to get, and yet I see so many people lose so much of the effectiveness of this weapon because they don't know how to properly use it. Because this weapon attacks every other game tick, I see people make the very common mistake of moving around, eating, brewing in between hits, and then clicking back late onto the boss, which ends up losing at the very least 1 tick, if not a lot of ticks, which is essentially cutting your DPS in half or worse, okay? One of the best weapons in the game becomes one of the worst. And you wonder why you can't kill Vorkath. Let's look back at the chart here. Now, it's worth mentioning that when you see your XP drop, that means that that is the tick that your attack has occurred on, right? So if you want to say move with the blowpipe, you have to click to do that at the same time as the XP drop. Okay, remember that makes the action register on the next tick, which is the off tick. We'll call it the off tick of the blowpipe. And on the off tick, that's when you need to click back on the monster. So you will actually attack on the next tick, which is when you would have attacked had you not moved. It's a little bit weird to explain, so watch me do it in game. As you see, I am clicking to move the same tick that I see my XP drop. So as I get that XP drop, I click to move. Next tick, I click on the mob. It's essentially just a 2-tick cycle that you can repeat forever. Click away on the XP drop, next tick onto the boss, click away on the XP drop, next tick on the boss, etc. A lot of newer players will ask me why they can't get a kill on a certain boss, and it is almost always because they are moving around, losing ticks, and especially eating instead of doing DPS. Just a side note, if you eat solid food like an anglerfish or something like that, the game will not allow you to attack for 3 more ticks. The more ticks that you lose, the longer an encounter will take. The longer the encounter takes, the more damage that the enemy is going to do to you. So the more damage the enemy does to you, that's the more supplies you're going to have to consume, and more supplies you have to consume means you lose more ticks. It's a vicious cycle, okay? But once you understand how your weapon works, you can begin to break free. Part 2, pathing and movement.
I'm going to start off with some L movement.
This part is hopefully a little bit quicker to talk about, but arguably even more important, guys, because this is the one thing that if you don't really understand, this is probably the biggest upgrade you could make to your gameplay. Now, if I had to give one just super basic pro tip, it is please, for the love of God, stop spam clicking everywhere. It's probably happened to you where you've run somewhere to avoid an attack, but by the time you get there, you have to dodge another attack, so you spam click to the other side of the room, but then you're in another attack and you spam click somewhere else. And what ends up happening is that your character starts sliding around like it's on a slip and slide filled with Bush's baked beans, which is a side note, really bad idea. I had a rash for like the last 2 weeks of summer camp. It's a secret family recipe for a reason. You really don't want to know what goes in there. Anyway, slow, purposeful clicks are the key to success. And it becomes a huge amount easier when you understand how your character actually moves. To do this, let's recruit a very useful tool in-game known as True Tile Indicator. Runescape has been lying to you, alright? The position that your character appears in is not necessarily where the server is registering you. TrueTile will elucidate the square that your character is on according to the game, right? So when you move, all right, if you walk, you go 1 tile per game tick, right? It's pretty easy. Even if you have run on, actually, you can click 1 tile per game tick, just this very flat and 100 BPM rhythm, and you'll end up walking, right? Which is a very useful tool if you need to conserve stamina. If you run, however, you move 2 tiles per game tick. If we look at our true tile here, you can see that it's jumping over 1 square every tick. If we run a straight line through 10 tiles, our character actually only registers on 5 of them, okay? According to the game, we were never on those tiles that we skipped. This could be very useful in rooms like Maiden, pathing over blood spots, or on Ulm, pathing over poison. On top of that, the direction in which you move is equally as important. Say you click a random tile far away, you will always move straight for as long as possible. And then you'll move diagonal when applicable, right? So let's put these two things together and watch one of the greatest RuneScape players do the gauntlet, okay? This is a piece of content that is huge for understanding movement. This is the big man Lake, all right? I'll link his Twitch down below. He's pretty much a legend in RuneScape. You probably have heard of him. But here, he's doing Corrupted Gauntlet on his hardcore Iron Man, which is pretty nutty. Watch him as he clicks a maximum of 2 tiles every game tick while pathing around tornadoes and danger zones, effectively controlling where his character is every single game tick. This is, as far as I'm concerned, perfect movement, right? This is what you aspire to, but it will take some practice. Another good example for this is the Sote maze. So a quote-unquote tick-perfect maze involves you clicking, once again, a maximum of 2 tiles every game tick, because that's as far as you can move, taking into account that you go straight and then diagonal. Sometimes you can only go 1 tile here due to a corner, but the principle remains the same. I'm going to link a Sote Maze Trainer web tool in the description. I highly recommend you guys check this out. I literally did it for like an hour when I was learning Tob so that I could get the maze down. And honestly, the Sote Maze is one of my favorite pieces of content in the whole game. I'll give you some time to meet me up here. All right, 3, 2, 1, go. Are they alive? Look at them go! They're so good, bro. They're so good, bro. Hopefully that has made it a little bit more clear on how movement and pathing works. But above all else, guys, you need to go in-game and go actually practice this for yourself. Now to part 3. Part 3 is prayers and prayer flicking. So I was actually prayer flicking incorrectly for my first 4 months of playing the game. Everyone just always told me, double click every time you hear the prayer activation noise. So that's what I did. That's a terrible explanation. That's not really how it works at all. First of all, everybody, turn on your metronome in RuneLite. It comes with RuneLite. Just click it, okay, and listen to the game ticks. So first things first, you need to turn your prayer on before you actually start prayer flicking. If all you do is immediately start double clicking protect from melee, you're just turning it off really fast over and over again. It doesn't do anything. So the first tick, you just turn it on. 1 single click. That's all you gotta do. Every tick after that, then you double click, okay? If you are doing this right, the prayer icon should never disappear from above your head. It should stay up there the whole time. If it disappears, you messed up. Now, if you want to switch from one prayer to another, say range to mage, right? Don't immediately start double clicking mage because that prayer was off to begin with. So once again, you would just be turning it off really fast. Click it once on the tick that you want to activate it and then resume double clicking every tick thereafter. Pretty simple, same concept with every single prayer in the game. It's pretty basic in theory, but it has a lot of pretty decent applications at the higher level, so it's a very useful tool to have in your tool belt. Now, even more important than that is understanding when to pray, okay? I'm going to use the Inferno for this because honestly the Inferno is where it really matters and it's a great example of what I'm about to talk about. Now, when you see the attack animation of an enemy start, all of the damage has already been calculated. It's checked what prayer is over your head. It's decided how much damage it is going to do. At this point, it is too late to do anything, all right? What you need to do is identify when that mob will attack and activate your prayer the tick before, okay? Callback, guys, remember, because it takes a tick for your action to activate, essentially. And as soon as you see the animation start, you are safe to turn that prayer off. This is also called lazy flicking, but once again, very useful tool to have in your arsenal. It's a little less click intensive than the one tick flicking that we were just talking about previously. However, I feel like it requires a little bit more brain power because you have to kind of actively keep count in your head. But still good to know, okay? Now, I know that I just puked a bunch of information onto you guys right there. And I know it's also a huge amount to think about, but this overall, everything I have just told you is one of those kinds of things where you need to go in-game and experience this. Go practice everything I just told you. Before long, what will happen is all of these concepts will kind of mesh into this general rhythm of RuneScape, if you will. And you can kind of use a myriad of context clues like animations, XP drops, sound cues, all together to kind of ingrain that rhythm at a subconscious level. So it ceases to be something that you actively think about, right? And it becomes more so something that you just kind of feel. Now, I feel like I should add, it took me essentially 3 years of playing 8 hours a day, which, yes, I am serious about that, to get to where I am now. So don't feel bad if this just doesn't click for you, right? On top of that, the only person at the end of the day that you are competing with is your past self. So don't go and compare yourself to some top tier gamer like Exact or something like that. As they say, comparison is the thief of joy. I don't know who said that, but I'm pretty sure someone said that once. Anywho, that's all from me. If you've made it this far, that either means you have learned something, or you are madly in love with me, or both. If that is the case, legally speaking, you do have to subscribe to the channel and like the video. You don't really have to turn the bell on, though. I'll be honest, I don't have that on for anyone, but you should, for me. Okay, please, or else. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Stay tasty.
Don't even think for a second, nigga, you might need a moment. You were only given one shot like a buzzer beater, but you stoned it. Brick house, brick house, brick house, brick house. 11 bricks at the studio, here's a brick on the house, here's a brick on the house. Yeah, you know they're coming quick, just like SWAT in the drug bust, but I'm slick, bitch, call me Rick.